Tonight, the boundaries between present and past dissolve like morning mist over a Zen garden. Feel the air heavy with incense and the silent weight of millennial traditions. If this journey touches your soul, join us again and whisper from where you listen to us. Now, dim the lights, breathe deeply. Let us dream with memories that are not ours. Stone sings to those who listen, and my hands awaken to rhythms older than memory as the first light of dawn touches the granite hills that surround our great city of Zimbabwe. I am a master mason in the service of the Mambo, the great king whose power flows through these stone walls we raise without mortar or binding, where each block finds its perfect place through songs that have guided our people since the ancestors first learned to speak with stone. The granite beneath my calloused palms holds within its crystalline heart the music of creation itself, waiting for hands that know the ancient melodies to coax it into walls that will stand until the stars forget their names. The workshop where I begin each day rests in the shadow of the great enclosure, that magnificent curved wall that rises like a prayer made manifest in stone, its serpentine form following the natural contours of the land, as if the earth itself had dreamed it into being. Here, among the tools worn smooth by generations of builders, I feel the weight of tradition settling over my shoulders like a cloak woven from the voices of all who came before me. The iron chisels, forged in fires that burn with the breath of the ancestors, rest beside wooden mallets carved from the hardest muqua trees, their surfaces polished by countless hours of patient labor. The granite that surrounds our city speaks in a language older than words. Its natural fractures and grain patterns reveal where each stone wishes to be placed, how it longs to join with its brothers in the eternal dance of construction. This is not ordinary rock, but stone blessed by the spirits of the land. Granite that has weathered countless seasons until it achieves the perfect balance of strength and workability that makes our building techniques possible. The way it splits along natural lines, the manner in which it can be shaped without losing its essential character, all speak of divine preparation for the work we are called to perform. My apprentices gather around me as the morning mist rises from the valley below, their young voices eager to learn the building songs that will guide their hands throughout their lives as masons. These chants are not mere entertainment, but functional elements of our craft. Rhythms that coordinate the lifting of heavy stones, melodies that help us remember the proper sequences of placement, harmonies that connect our work to the spiritual forces that govern all construction. Each song carries within it the accumulated wisdom of generations, encoded in verses that teach while they inspire. The tools of our trade are more than mere implements. They are instruments in the great orchestra of construction, each one tuned to produce specific sounds that blend with our voices to create the complex harmonies that guide our work. The ring of iron against granite, the thud of wooden mallets against stone, the scraping of blocks being fitted into place, all become part of the musical landscape that transforms the act of building into a form of worship, a celebration of the harmony between human skill and natural material. Today, we begin work on a new section of the royal enclosure, walls that will house the sacred objects that connect our king to the ancestral spirits who guide our people's destiny. The placement of these stones requires not just technical skill, but spiritual preparation, for we build not merely with granite, but with the accumulated power of generations who have walked this land and blessed it with their presence. Each block we set in place becomes part of a structure that exists simultaneously in the physical world and the realm of the spirits. The songs that will guide today's work were taught to me by my master, Mukoma Chipo. whose hands shaped stone with such skill that people said the granite itself would weep when he died. His voice still echoes in my memory, teaching me that the true mason does not force stone into submission, but learns to hear what each block wishes to become, following the natural inclinations of the material while guiding it toward the forms that serve human needs. The songs he taught me carry his wisdom forward, ensuring that his knowledge will live on in the walls we build and the apprentices we train. The rhythm of our work follows patterns established by the ancestors, cycles that connect our daily labor to the greater rhythms of the seasons, the movements of the stars, the eternal dance between earth and sky that governs all life. We begin each day with songs of greeting to the stone, acknowledging its sacrifice in becoming part of our walls. We pause at midday to sing the songs of strength that help us lift the heaviest blocks. As evening approaches, we offer songs of gratitude to the spirits who have guided our hands and blessed our work with success. The granite hills that surround our city echo with the sounds of our labor, the ring of tools and the harmony of voices, creating a symphony that speaks of human determination and divine blessing combined in the service of something greater than individual ambition. These sounds carry across the valley to reach the ears of farmers and traders, craftsmen and warriors, all of whom understand that the building of Zimbabwe is not just the construction of a city, but the creation of a sacred space where the power of the ancestors can dwell among the living. The morning light reveals the scope of our achievement, walls that curve and flow like living things, following the natural contours of the land while creating spaces that serve the complex needs of royal life. The great enclosure stands as testament to what can be accomplished when human skill aligns itself with natural forces, when the songs of the builders harmonize with the music that flows through stone and earth, wind and water, all the elements that combine to make construction possible. Each boulder speaks of placement, revealing where the ancestors intended walls to rise, and I feel the profound wisdom flowing through my fingertips as I study the granite formations that will yield the stones for today's construction. The art of reading stone is perhaps the most sacred aspect of our craft, requiring not just knowledge of geology, but deep communion with the spirits that dwell within the rock, understanding that each piece of granite carries within its crystalline structure the memory of where it belongs in the great pattern that connects all things. The granite outcroppings that dot our landscape are not random formations, but carefully placed gifts from the ancestors, positioned exactly where they will be needed when the time comes to build the walls that will house the power of kings and shelter the sacred objects that connect our people to the spirit world. Brother Tendai, our master stone reader, moves among these formations with the reverence of a priest approaching an altar, his weathered hands tracing the natural fracture lines that reveal how each boulder wishes to be divided. The songs we sing while examining stone are different from those used during construction, quieter, more contemplative, designed to open our hearts to the subtle communications that flow between human consciousness and the mineral realm. These melodies, passed down through generations of master builders, help us achieve the state of receptivity necessary to hear what the granite is trying to tell us about its nature, its strengths, its preferred orientation, its destined place in the walls we will create. The natural weathering patterns that mark each boulder tell stories of countless seasons, of rain and sun, heat and cold, all the forces that have slowly prepared the stone from raw material into architectural element. We read these patterns like scribes reading ancient texts, understanding that the lines and cracks, the variations in color and texture, all carry information about how the stone will behave when we begin to shape it for our purposes. The granite of our region possesses qualities that make it ideal for our building techniques, hard enough to endure for centuries, yet workable enough to be shaped with iron tools. dense enough to bear enormous loads, yet naturally inclined to split along predictable lines that allow us to create blocks of uniform size and shape. The ancestors who first settled this land understood these properties, choosing this location not just for its defensive advantages, but for the abundance of perfect building stone that surrounds us. The process of selecting stones for specific purposes requires deep understanding of how different types of granite will perform in various parts of our structures. The foundation stones must be chosen for their ability to bear weight without shifting. Their surface is flat enough to provide stable bases for the courses that will rise above them. The cornerstones need perfect right angles and smooth faces that will allow them to interlock with their neighbors in the complex joints that give our walls their strength. The decorative stones that will crown our walls require different qualities: fine grain that will accept detailed carving, uniform color that will create pleasing visual effects, resistance to weathering that will preserve their beauty through countless seasons. Brother Tendai can identify these special stones at a glance, his experienced eye recognizing the subtle signs that mark granite suitable for the most demanding applications. The songs of stone selection help us remember the criteria that govern our choices. Their verses encoding the accumulated wisdom of generations who have learned through trial and error which stones will serve which purposes. The melody that guides the selection of foundation stones is deep and steady, reflecting the stability these blocks must provide. The song for choosing decorative elements is lighter, more playful, celebrating the beauty that will emerge when skilled hands shape the granite into ornamental forms. The spiritual dimension of stone reading extends beyond mere technical considerations to encompass our understanding of the forces that flow through the earth, the currents of power that connect all living things to the mineral realm that supports and sustains them. Each boulder we examine carries within it some portion of this power, and our task is to determine how that energy can best be channeled into the service of our building project. The orientation of natural fractures tells us how each stone prefers to be positioned in our walls, which face should be turned toward the sun, which edge should bear the weight of the stones above. Working against these natural inclinations leads to weakness and eventual failure, while honoring them creates structures that seem to grow from the earth itself, walls that appear to be natural formations rather than human constructions. The color variations within each piece of granite speak of the different minerals that combined during its formation, information that helps us predict how the stone will weather over time, how it will respond to the thermal stresses of heating and cooling, how it will interact with the iron tools we use to shape it. The songs that guide this aspect of stone reading are complex, their harmonies reflecting the intricate relationships between the various elements that make up the granite structure. The size and shape of natural boulders influence how we plan our construction sequences, determining which stones will be quarried first, how they will be transported to the building site, where they will be positioned in the growing walls. The largest boulders often yield the foundation stones that anchor entire sections of wall, while smaller formations provide the varied sizes needed for the complex fitting that characterizes our building style. The acoustic properties of different granites affect how they will contribute to the overall sound environment of our completed structures, some stones ringing like bells when struck, others producing deeper, more resonant tones. These variations become part of the musical landscape of our buildings, creating spaces where the very walls participate in the ceremonies and celebrations that give meaning to royal life. The process of marking selected stones for quarrying involves ceremonies that acknowledge the sacrifice the granite will make in becoming part of our walls, rituals that ensure the spirits dwelling within the rock will bless rather than curse our construction efforts. We sing songs of gratitude and promise, assuring the stone that it will be honored in its new form, that its strength will serve purposes worthy of its ancient dignity. The transportation of marked stones from quarry to construction site requires careful planning and coordination, with specific songs designed to help teams of workers move heavy blocks without injury to themselves or damage to the granite. These work songs establish rhythms that allow many hands to work as one, their coordinated efforts multiplying individual strength into the collective power needed to move stones that would be impossible for any single person to handle. The final placement of each stone in our walls represents the culmination of the reading process, the moment when all our careful observation and spiritual preparation bears fruit in the form of blocks that fit together with such precision that no mortar is needed to hold them in place. The songs that accompany this placement are triumphant, celebrating the successful completion of another step in the great work of building Zimbabwe. Ancient melodies guide our hands as we fit granite without mortar or mistake, and I feel the profound power of ancestral wisdom flowing through the songs that have shaped stone into cities for countless generations. These building chants are not mere accompaniment to our work, but the very essence of our craft, rhythmic formulas that encode the precise techniques needed to create walls that will stand for centuries without any binding agent save the perfect marriage of stone to stone, weight to weight, spirit to spirit. The song of first placement begins each day's work, its deep bass notes resonating through the granite hills as we prepare to lift the foundation stones that will anchor another section of our growing walls. This ancient melody, older than the oldest grandfather's memory, establishes the rhythm that will govern all our movements throughout the day, synchronizing the efforts of dozens of workers into a single coordinated dance of construction that transforms individual labor into collective achievement. Brother Chaminuka, our master songkeeper, leads the morning chorus with a voice that seems to emerge from the earth itself, each note perfectly pitched to resonate with the natural frequency of the granite we will shape. His songs carry the accumulated knowledge of generations, their verses encoding the precise angles at which stones must be placed, the exact pressures needed to achieve perfect joints, the subtle adjustments that transform rough blocks into architectural elements of impossible precision. The lifting song that accompanies the movement of heavy stones requires perfect coordination between voice and muscle, its rhythm designed to ensure that all workers apply their strength at exactly the same moment, preventing the dangerous shifts and slips that could crush fingers or topple carefully positioned blocks. The melody rises and falls like breathing, creating natural pauses where workers can adjust their grips and prepare for the next coordinated effort. The songs that guide the fitting of stones into their final positions are perhaps the most complex in our repertoire, their intricate harmonies reflecting the delicate adjustments needed to achieve the perfect joints that characterize our building style. Each verse corresponds to a specific type of movement, the gentle rocking that settles a block into its bed, the careful sliding that aligns edges with mathematical precision, the final tapping that locks everything into place with satisfying finality. The measuring song helps us maintain the precise dimensions that ensure our walls rise straight and true. Its mathematical verses encoding the proportional relationships that govern all aspects of our construction. The rhythm of this chant matches the steady pace of workers checking alignments and verifying angles, while its melody provides the mental framework needed to remember complex sequences of measurements and calculations. The corner song celebrates the completion of each corner joint, those critical connections where walls meet at right angles and the full weight of the structure begins to concentrate into the foundation stones below. These corners require stones of exceptional quality and perfect shape, fitted with such precision that the joints become invisible, creating the illusion that entire sections of wall have been carved from single massive blocks of granite. The songs that accompany the shaping of decorative elements are lighter and more playful than those used for structural work. Their melodies reflect the joy that comes from creating beauty as well as strength. These chants help carvers maintain the steady rhythm needed for detailed work, while providing the mental focus required to execute complex patterns without error. The harmony between multiple carvers working on related elements creates a musical environment that seems to guide their tools toward perfect coordination. The evening song that marks the end of each day's work serves multiple purposes. It provides a natural conclusion to the day's labor, helps workers transition from the intense concentration of building to the relaxation of evening rest, and offers gratitude to the spirits who have guided our hands and blessed our efforts with success. This melody, slower and more contemplative than the working songs, creates space for reflection on the day's achievements and preparation for tomorrow's challenges. The weather songs help us adapt our work to changing conditions. Their verses provide guidance for building in rain or wind, heat or cold. The rhythm of these chants changes with the weather itself. Quick and energetic during the brief highland showers that require rapid covering of work in progress, slow and steady during the long dry seasons when dust and heat test the endurance of workers and the stability of partially completed walls. The songs that govern the mixing and application of the clay mortar used in our dhaka structures follow different patterns from those used for dry stone work, their rhythms matching the circular motions needed to achieve proper consistency and the careful spreading techniques that create smooth, durable surfaces. These chants bridge the gap between our stone building traditions and the older techniques of earth construction that still serve important functions in our architectural vocabulary. The teaching songs used to train apprentices break down complex techniques into memorable verses that can be learned gradually over months and years of practice. These educational chants layer information in carefully structured progressions, beginning with simple concepts and building toward the sophisticated understanding needed for master-level work. The melodies are designed to stick in young minds, ensuring that crucial knowledge will be retained and passed forward to future generations. The ceremonial songs performed during the dedication of completed structures transform our building sites into sacred spaces where the spiritual and physical dimensions of construction merge into unified wholes. These elaborate compositions, involving multiple voices and complex harmonies, create atmospheric conditions that facilitate communication between the human builders and the ancestral spirits who must bless our work if it is to serve its intended purposes. The songs that accompany the quarrying of new stone help workers coordinate the dangerous task of splitting granite along natural fracture lines, their rhythms timed to ensure that hammer blows fall in perfect sequence, maximizing the force applied while minimizing the risk of unpredictable breaks that could injure workers or waste valuable material. These quarrying chants also serve to honor the sacrifice of the stone, acknowledging that we take from the earth only what we need and only with proper gratitude. The repair songs used when maintaining existing structures require different techniques from those employed in new construction, their verses encoding the specialized knowledge needed to match new work to old, to identify and correct structural problems before they become serious threats to the integrity of our walls. These maintenance chants help preserve not just our buildings, but the knowledge needed to keep them standing through countless generations of use. The integration songs that coordinate work between different teams of builders ensure that separate sections of wall will meet properly when construction advances from multiple directions simultaneously. These complex compositions require master-level understanding of both musical and architectural principles. Their harmonies reflect the geometric relationships that must be maintained if the various parts of our structures are to form coherent wholes. Young throats learn the building chants that have raised cities from African earth, and I feel the profound responsibility of passing forward the sacred knowledge that transforms ordinary voices into instruments of construction, ordinary hands into tools of creation. The apprentices who gather around me each morning carry within their eager hearts the future of our craft. And it is through their voices that the ancient songs will continue to guide the building of walls long after my own hands have grown too stiff to shape stone. Mukoma Tapiwa, barely 14 seasons old, struggles with the complex rhythms of the foundation song, his voice cracking as he attempts to match the deep bass notes that must resonate through granite to awaken its willingness to be shaped. I remember my own early efforts to master these challenging melodies, how my throat would grow raw from attempting to produce sounds that seemed to require more breath than any human lungs could hold. Yet patience and practice gradually teach the voice to find the resonant frequencies that make stone sing in response. The learning process begins with the simplest chants, the greeting song that acknowledges the spirit dwelling within each piece of granite. The gratitude song that honors the sacrifice stone makes in becoming part of our walls. These basic melodies establish the fundamental relationship between builder and material, teaching young masons that construction is not conquest but collaboration, not forcing stone into submission but inviting it to participate in the creation of something greater than either human vision or natural material could achieve alone. Sister Chipo, one of the few women permitted to learn the building songs, possesses a voice of unusual clarity and power, her high notes cutting through the morning air like the call of the fish eagle that soars above our valley. The songs she learns will serve different purposes from those mastered by her male counterparts. The blessing chants that consecrate completed sections of wall. The healing songs that repair cracks and weaknesses before they can threaten structural integrity. The protective melodies that ward off the evil spirits who seek to undermine our construction efforts. The memory techniques embedded within our teaching songs help apprentices retain vast amounts of technical information without the need for written records that could be lost or stolen by enemies. Each verse encodes specific measurements, particular angles, precise sequences of operations that must be followed if construction is to proceed successfully. The rhythm and rhyme of these educational chants make complex information memorable, ensuring that crucial knowledge will survive even if individual masters are lost to war or disease. The breathing exercises that accompany vocal training serve dual purposes. They develop the lung capacity needed to sustain the long phrases that characterize our building songs, while also teaching the controlled breathing techniques that help workers maintain steady effort during the most demanding physical tasks. The coordination between breath and movement becomes second nature through years of practice, allowing experienced masons to work for hours without fatigue while maintaining the precision that our construction methods require. The apprentices learn not just individual songs, but the complex relationships between different melodies, understanding how the foundation song must blend with the lifting chant, how the measuring melody harmonizes with the fitting song. These musical relationships reflect the technical relationships between different aspects of construction, teaching young builders to think systematically about how their individual tasks contribute to the larger project of creating walls that will endure for generations. The seasonal variations in our building songs help apprentices understand how weather and climate affect construction techniques, when certain types of work should be undertaken and when they should be avoided. The summer songs that guide work during the dry season emphasize speed and efficiency, taking advantage of stable weather to accomplish the most demanding tasks. The winter chants that govern construction during the rainy months focus on protection and preservation, ensuring that partially completed work survives until favorable conditions return. The correction songs used when apprentices make mistakes serve not to shame or punish, but to transform errors into learning opportunities. Their gentle melodies providing emotional support, while their verses explain how problems can be identified and corrected. These teaching tools help young builders develop the self-confidence needed to attempt challenging tasks while maintaining the humility required to accept guidance from more experienced masters. The competitive songs that pit teams of apprentices against each other in friendly contests of skill and speed help develop the coordination and teamwork that large construction projects require. These musical competitions teach young builders to subordinate individual ambition to collective achievement, while providing the motivation needed to push personal abilities to their highest levels. The winning teams earn the right to work on the most prestigious sections of current projects, while the losers receive additional training to help them improve their performance. The storytelling songs that recount the great building projects of the past help apprentices understand their place in the long tradition of Zimbabwean construction, connecting their daily labor to the legendary achievements of master builders whose names are still spoken with reverence. These historical chants preserve not just technical knowledge, but the cultural values that give meaning to our craft, teaching young masons that they build not just walls, but the foundation of civilization itself. The spiritual songs that prepare apprentices for the sacred aspects of their craft require the most careful instruction, for these melodies carry power that can be dangerous if misused. The chants that communicate with ancestral spirits, the songs that channel protective forces, the melodies that consecrate completed work, all must be learned with perfect accuracy and performed with appropriate reverence. A single wrong note in these sacred compositions could bring disaster upon an entire construction project. The graduation songs that mark the transition from apprentice to journeyman represent the culmination of years of study and practice. Their complex harmonies require mastery of all the basic techniques while demonstrating the musical sophistication needed for advanced work. These ceremonial compositions are performed only once in each builder's lifetime, during the ritual that formally recognizes their readiness to take responsibility for their own sections of construction. The teaching songs that qualified journeymen will eventually use to train their own apprentices require a different kind of mastery, not just technical perfection, but the ability to break down complex knowledge into digestible portions, to recognize individual learning styles and adapt instruction accordingly. These pedagogical melodies help ensure that the chain of knowledge transmission will continue unbroken, that each generation will receive the full inheritance of wisdom accumulated by all who came before. The innovation songs that encourage experimentation within traditional frameworks help apprentices understand that our craft is not static, but constantly evolving, that each generation has the responsibility to refine and improve the techniques they inherit. These creative chants provide guidelines for testing new approaches, while maintaining the fundamental principles that have proven their worth through centuries of successful construction. Curved walls grow like living things, following songs that know no straight lines, and I feel the profound mystery of organic architecture flowing through my hands as we shape the great enclosure according to principles that honor the natural contours of the land, rather than imposing rigid geometric patterns upon the living earth. The songs that guide this work are different from those used for ordinary construction, flowing melodies that curve and spiral like the walls themselves, rhythms that follow the breathing of the earth rather than the mechanical precision of human measurement. The great enclosure rises before us like a stone river frozen in time, its serpentine walls following the natural rise and fall of the granite ridge upon which it rests. This is not architecture that fights against the landscape, but construction that embraces and enhances the forms that nature has already created, walls that seem to grow from the earth itself rather than being imposed upon it by human will. The songs that guide this work must capture this organic quality, their melodies flowing like water around obstacles, finding the path of least resistance while maintaining the structural integrity that royal walls require. Brother Nehanda, our master of curved construction, possesses an intuitive understanding of how stone wishes to flow when freed from the constraints of straight lines and right angles. his voice leads us in the spiral song that governs the laying of curved courses, its melody rising and falling like the walls themselves, teaching our hands to follow the natural inclinations of the granite while maintaining the precise tolerances that ensure structural stability. Each note of this ancient chant corresponds to a specific adjustment in angle or pressure, guiding us through the complex process of creating curves that appear effortless but require extraordinary skill to execute. The mathematical principles that govern curved construction are encoded within the verses of our building songs, their rhythmic patterns helping us remember the complex calculations needed to ensure that walls which follow irregular paths will still meet at their intended destinations. The curve song teaches us how to divide irregular arcs into manageable segments, how to maintain consistent wall thickness despite changing directions, how to create the subtle transitions that allow curved sections to blend seamlessly with straight ones. The foundation work for curved walls requires special techniques that differ significantly from those used for rectilinear construction. The foundation curve song guides us through the process of creating beds that follow the intended path of the wall while maintaining the level surfaces needed for stable construction. This melody helps us coordinate the work of multiple teams, each responsible for a different section of the curve, ensuring that their individual efforts will combine to create a unified whole. The breathing exercises that accompany vocal training serve dual purposes. They develop the lung capacity needed to sustain the long phrases that characterize our building songs, while also teaching the controlled breathing techniques that help workers maintain steady effort during the most demanding physical tasks. The coordination between breath and movement becomes second nature through years of practice, allowing experienced masons to work for hours without fatigue while maintaining the precision that our construction methods require. The apprentices learn not just individual songs, but the complex relationships between different melodies, understanding how the foundation song must blend with the lifting chant, how the measuring melody harmonizes with the fitting song. These musical relationships reflect the technical relationships between different aspects of construction, teaching young builders to think systematically about how their individual tasks contribute to the larger project of creating walls that will endure for generations. The seasonal variations in our building songs help apprentices understand how weather and climate affect construction techniques, when certain types of work should be undertaken and when they should be avoided. The summer songs that guide work during the dry season emphasize speed and efficiency, taking advantage of stable weather to accomplish the most demanding tasks. The winter chants that govern construction during the rainy months focus on protection and preservation, ensuring that partially completed work survives until favorable conditions return. The correction songs used when apprentices make mistakes serve not to shame or punish, but to transform errors into learning opportunities. Their gentle melodies providing emotional support, while their verses explain how problems can be identified and corrected. These teaching tools help young builders develop the self-confidence needed to attempt challenging tasks while maintaining the humility required to accept guidance from more experienced masters. The competitive songs that pit teams of apprentices against each other in friendly contests of skill and speed help develop the coordination and teamwork that large construction projects require. These musical competitions teach young builders to subordinate individual ambition to collective achievement, while providing the motivation needed to push personal abilities to their highest levels. The winning teams earn the right to work on the most prestigious sections of current projects, while the losers receive additional training to help them improve their performance. The drainage systems that protect curved walls from water damage must follow the natural flow patterns created by the wall's irregular geometry. The drainage song teaches us how to carve channels and gutters that work with rather than against the wall's curves, directing water away from vulnerable joints while maintaining the visual integrity of the structure. This chant helps us understand how water will behave when it encounters curved surfaces, allowing us to anticipate and prevent potential problems. The repair techniques used for curved walls require specialized knowledge that differs from that needed for straight construction. The repair song for curved work teaches us how to identify and correct problems that are unique to this type of construction, how to maintain the flowing lines of the wall while addressing structural issues, how to match new work to old when sections must be rebuilt or reinforced. The spiritual significance of curved construction is reflected in the sacred songs that accompany this work, melodies that acknowledge the connection between our flowing walls and the natural forces that shape the landscape around us. These chants recognize that curved construction requires us to work in harmony with powers greater than human will, to become partners with the earth itself in the creation of architecture that honors rather than dominates the natural world. The completion songs that celebrate the finishing of curved sections are among the most beautiful in our repertoire, their flowing melodies reflecting the organic beauty of the walls they honor. These ceremonial chants transform construction sites into sacred spaces, where the boundary between human achievement and natural wonder becomes impossible to define, where our stone walls seem to breathe with the same life that flows through the granite hills from which they were born. The legacy songs that will preserve the knowledge of curved construction for future generations must capture not just the technical aspects of this work, but its spiritual dimensions as well. These teaching chants will ensure that the wisdom needed to create walls that flow like living things will survive even if individual masters are lost, that the songs which know straight lines will continue to guide the hands of builders yet unborn. On sacred heights, we build for kings whose power flows through stone and song, and I feel the profound weight of royal responsibility settling over our construction site as we work upon the hill complex, that ancient stronghold where the spirits of past rulers dwell among the granite outcroppings and guide our hands in the creation of walls worthy of divine kingship. Here, where the earth reaches toward heaven and the ancestors walk among the living, every stone we place must reflect not just technical mastery, but spiritual understanding of the forces that flow between the mortal and immortal realms. The hill complex rises from the granite ridge like a crown of stone, its walls following the natural contours of the rocky outcrop, while creating the sacred spaces where our mambo communes with the ancestral spirits who guide the destiny of our people. The songs that govern construction in this holy place are different from those used in the valley below, more reverent, more complex, charged with the power that comes from working in the presence of forces greater than human understanding. Brother Mutapa, our master of royal construction, leads the morning prayers that consecrate our work before the first stone is lifted, his voice carrying across the hilltop to reach the ears of the spirits who must bless our efforts if they are to succeed. The royal building song that begins each day's work acknowledges the sacred nature of our task, asking permission from the ancestors to continue the work of creating spaces where earthly and divine power can meet and merge in the service of the kingdom. The foundation stones for royal walls require selection according to criteria that go beyond mere structural considerations to encompass the spiritual qualities that will allow them to channel and contain the forces that flow through places of power. The foundation song for royal work includes verses that help us identify granite blocks whose natural properties will enhance rather than interfere with the sacred energies that must be concentrated within these walls. Each stone must be tested not just for strength and stability, but for its ability to resonate with the frequencies of royal power. The orientation of royal walls follows astronomical alignments that connect our earthly construction to the cosmic forces that govern the movements of stars and seasons. The alignment song teaches us how to position walls so that they will channel the beneficial influences of celestial bodies while deflecting harmful energies that might threaten the king's power or the kingdom's prosperity. These alignments require precise measurements and careful timing, with certain stones placed only when specific stars are in favorable positions. The construction techniques used for royal walls incorporate elements of sacred geometry that transform functional architecture into three-dimensional mandalas, structures that serve as focal points for the concentration and direction of spiritual power. The geometry song helps us understand the mathematical relationships that must be maintained if our walls are to function as intended, teaching us to create proportions that reflect the divine order underlying all creation. The materials used in royal construction must be blessed and consecrated through elaborate ceremonies that transform ordinary granite into vessels capable of containing and channeling sacred power. The blessing song that accompanies these rituals helps us understand the spiritual preparation that stones must undergo before they can be incorporated into walls that will house the presence of divine kinship. Each block receives individual attention from the priests who serve as intermediaries between the human builders and the ancestral spirits. The work songs used during royal construction must maintain the reverent atmosphere appropriate to sacred work while providing the rhythmic coordination needed for complex building tasks. The royal work song balances these requirements through melodies that inspire both devotion and efficiency, helping workers maintain the spiritual focus that royal construction requires while ensuring that technical standards remain uncompromised by the ceremonial aspects of the work. The security considerations that govern royal construction require specialized techniques for creating walls that will protect the king from both physical and spiritual threats. The protection song teaches us how to incorporate defensive features into our walls without compromising their sacred functions, how to create barriers that will turn aside both enemy weapons and malevolent spirits. These protective elements must be integrated seamlessly into the overall design, invisible to casual observers but effective against those who would harm the royal person. The acoustic properties of royal walls must be designed to enhance the ceremonies and rituals that give meaning to kingship, creating spaces where the king's voice will carry with appropriate authority while ensuring that sacred conversations remain private from unauthorized ears. The acoustic song helps us understand how to shape walls and position openings to create the sound environments that royal functions require, spaces where whispers can be heard clearly by intended recipients while remaining inaudible to potential eavesdroppers. The symbolic elements incorporated into royal walls must reflect the complex mythology that legitimizes royal power and connects the current king to the long line of ancestors who have ruled before him. The symbol song teaches us how to carve and position the sacred images that transform functional walls into repositories of royal ideology, creating visual narratives that reinforce the king's divine mandate while providing focal points for the rituals that maintain his connection to the spirit world. The maintenance requirements for royal walls extend beyond ordinary structural concerns to encompass the spiritual upkeep that ensures these sacred spaces will continue to function as intended. The maintenance song for royal work teaches us how to identify and correct not just physical problems but spiritual imbalances that might interfere with the flow of power through our constructed spaces. This ongoing care requires constant vigilance and regular ceremonies to renew the blessings that keep royal walls functioning properly. The completion ceremonies that mark the finishing of royal construction projects transform our building sites into sacred theaters where the king formally takes possession of the spaces we have created for his use. The completion song that accompanies these rituals helps coordinate the complex choreography of royal ceremony while providing the musical framework that allows the king to demonstrate his mastery over both the physical and spiritual dimensions of his realm. The legacy of royal construction extends far beyond the immediate function of housing royal activities to encompass the role these structures play in maintaining the cosmic order that ensures the kingdom's prosperity. The legacy song teaches us that the walls we build for kings will continue to channel and focus sacred power long after the current ruler has joined the ancestors, that our construction work contributes to the eternal foundation upon which royal authority rests. The training required for royal construction work demands not just technical mastery, but spiritual preparation that allows workers to function effectively in the presence of concentrated sacred power. The training song for royal work helps apprentices understand the additional responsibilities that come with this privilege, teaching them to maintain the purity of heart and clarity of purpose that royal construction requires, while developing the advanced skills needed for the most demanding aspects of sacred architecture. Soapstone eagles watch our work, their silent wisdom blessing every placed stone. And I feel the profound presence of the Zimbabwe birds as they oversee our construction from their perches atop the sacred walls of the hill complex. These carved sentinels, shaped from the soft green stone that yields so readily to skilled hands, embody the spiritual forces that guide our building efforts and connect our earthly work to the realm of the ancestors who continue to rule through the power of divine kingship. The 8 great birds that crown our most sacred walls are more than mere decorations. They are vessels for the spirits of past rulers, focal points where the power of the ancestors concentrates to bless and guide the work of the living. Each bird is carved according to ancient patterns that encode the spiritual relationships between the earthly and divine realms, their forms following proportions that reflect the cosmic harmonies underlying all creation. The songs we sing while working in their presence must acknowledge their authority and seek their blessing for every stone we place. Brother Chaminuka, our master carver of sacred images, approaches the creation of each bird with the reverence due to a ritual of the highest importance. The carving song that guides his work is among the most complex in our repertoire, its intricate melodies reflecting the delicate balance between artistic expression and spiritual function that these sacred sculptures must achieve. Each stroke of his chisel is guided by verses that have been passed down through generations of master carvers, ensuring that the birds will possess the spiritual potency their sacred role requires. The soapstone from which our birds are carved comes from quarries that are themselves sacred sites, places where the earth yields its treasures only to those who approach with proper reverence and understanding. The quarrying song for sacred stone includes elaborate rituals of purification and blessing, ceremonies that transform the act of extraction into a form of communion with the spirits that dwell within the mineral realm. Each piece of soapstone must be consecrated before it can be shaped into forms that will house the presence of ancestral power. The positioning of the Zimbabwe birds atop our walls follows astronomical alignments that connect their earthly presence to the celestial realm where the spirits of kings take their place among the stars. The positioning song teaches us how to orient each bird so that it will serve as a conduit for the beneficial influences that flow from specific constellations, while deflecting harmful energies that might threaten the kingdom's prosperity. These alignments require precise calculations and careful timing, with each bird placed only when the stars are in favorable configurations. The spiritual preparation required for working in the presence of the Zimbabwe birds extends beyond ordinary construction rituals to encompass elaborate ceremonies of purification and blessing. The purification song that begins each day's work in the sacred precincts helps us achieve the state of spiritual cleanliness necessary for functioning in spaces where divine power is concentrated. Workers who fail to maintain proper spiritual discipline risk not just personal harm, but damage to the entire construction project. The protective power of the Zimbabwe birds extends over all aspects of our construction work. Their watchful presence ensuring that our walls will be blessed with the strength and stability that only ancestral approval can provide. The protection song that acknowledges their guardianship helps us understand how to work in harmony with the spiritual forces they represent, how to align our construction efforts with the cosmic patterns that govern the flow of power through sacred spaces. The symbolic meanings encoded within the form and positioning of each Zimbabwe bird reflect the complex mythology that legitimizes royal power and connects the current king to the eternal authority of the ancestors. The symbol song teaches us to read these carved messages, Understanding how each bird's posture and orientation contributes to the overall narrative that transforms our stone walls into three-dimensional texts proclaiming the divine nature of kingship. The acoustic properties of the spaces where Zimbabwe birds are positioned must be designed to enhance their function as focal points for royal ceremony and ancestral communication. The acoustic song for sacred spaces helps us understand how to shape walls and position openings to create sound environments where the king's prayers will reach the ears of the ancestors while ensuring that their responses will be clearly audible to those qualified to receive them. The maintenance of the Zimbabwe birds requires specialized knowledge and techniques that go beyond ordinary stone conservation to encompass the spiritual upkeep necessary for preserving their sacred functions. The maintenance song for sacred sculptures teaches us how to clean and protect these precious carvings while maintaining the spiritual protocols that ensure their continued effectiveness as vessels for ancestral power. This work can only be performed by those who have undergone the proper initiations and demonstrated their worthiness to handle objects of such sacred significance. The seasonal ceremonies that honor the Zimbabwe birds mark the passage of time, according to the cosmic calendar that governs royal activities and ensures the kingdom's continued prosperity. The seasonal song that accompanies these rituals helps coordinate the complex choreography of royal ceremony, while providing the musical framework that allows the king to demonstrate his mastery over the forces of time and season that affect all aspects of life in the kingdom. The artistic traditions that guide the carving of Zimbabwe birds preserve not just technical knowledge, but the spiritual understanding necessary for creating sculptures that will function effectively as vessels for ancestral power. The artistic song teaches apprentice carvers to balance aesthetic considerations with spiritual requirements, ensuring that each bird will be beautiful enough to honor the ancestors while possessing the sacred potency that its ritual function demands. The historical significance of the Zimbabwe birds extends beyond their immediate role in royal ceremony to encompass their function as symbols of the kingdom's identity and continuity. The historical song that recounts their origins helps us understand how these carved eagles connect our current construction work to the legendary achievements of the past, how they serve as links in the chain of tradition that stretches from the first builders of Zimbabwe to the present day. The prophetic power attributed to the Zimbabwe birds allows them to serve as oracles through which the ancestors communicate their will to the living, providing guidance for both construction decisions and matters of royal policy. The oracle song teaches us how to interpret the signs and omens that manifest in the presence of these sacred sculptures, how to read the subtle indications that reveal whether our work meets with ancestral approval or requires modification to align with divine will. The legacy of the Zimbabwe birds ensures that their influence will continue long after the current generation of builders has joined the ancestors, their carved forms serving as eternal guardians of the sacred spaces we create and the royal power they are designed to protect. The legacy song reminds us that these sculptures will outlast our mortal lives, continuing to watch over Zimbabwe and bless its rulers through countless generations yet to come. Merchants bring melodies from the coast, and we weave them into our building chants. As I feel the profound transformation occurring in our musical traditions, as traders from distant lands carry new rhythms and harmonies into our Highland Kingdom. The songs that guide our construction work are not static relics of the past, but living traditions that grow and evolve through contact with the wider world, incorporating elements from the coastal Swahili cities, the inland kingdoms of the Zambezi Valley, and even the mysterious lands beyond the great waters where Arab dhows carry our gold and ivory. The morning brings a caravan from Kilwa, their pack animals laden with the precious goods that make Zimbabwe wealthy. Glass beads from distant furnaces, silk cloth that shimmers like captured sunlight, copper ingots that will be shaped into the ornaments that adorn our royal walls. But more valuable than any material cargo are the songs they carry, melodies learned in the markets of Mogadishu and Malindi. rhythms that echo the beating of drums in lands where the great river meets the endless sea. Brother Mukamuri, our master of musical innovation, listens carefully to the trader's songs, his trained ear identifying elements that can be woven into our building chants without compromising their essential function. The integration song that guides this process helps us understand how foreign melodies can be adapted to serve our construction needs, how rhythms developed for different purposes can be modified to coordinate the lifting of stones and the fitting of joints. The coastal songs that speak of tides and monsoons bring new understanding of cyclical time to our construction work, their flowing rhythms teaching us to think of building not as a linear process, but as a series of waves that advance and retreat according to natural patterns. The tidal song that emerges from this fusion helps us coordinate work teams more effectively, creating rhythms that allow for the natural ebb and flow of energy that characterizes all human endeavor. The Arab melodies that accompany the loading and unloading of trade goods provide new models for the coordination of complex tasks involving many workers. The coordination song that incorporates these elements helps us manage the increasingly elaborate construction projects that our growing wealth makes possible, teaching us to synchronize the efforts of hundreds of workers across multiple building sites while maintaining the precision that our architectural standards require. The Indian Ocean rhythms that guide the navigation of dhows across vast expanses of water offer new approaches to the spatial organization of our construction sites. The navigation song that adapts these maritime melodies helps us plan the movement of materials and workers across the complex terrain of our building projects, ensuring that stones and tools arrive where they are needed when they are needed, despite the challenging logistics of highland construction. The trading songs that help merchants remember complex exchange rates and commodity values provide models for encoding technical information within musical structures. The technical song that emerges from this influence helps our builders memorize the increasingly sophisticated mathematical relationships that govern our most ambitious architectural projects, ensuring that crucial calculations will be preserved even if written records are lost or destroyed. The ceremonial songs that mark important events in the trading calendar offer new frameworks for organizing the ritual aspects of our construction work. The ceremonial song that incorporates these elements helps us coordinate the spiritual and practical dimensions of building, ensuring that our work proceeds according to both technical requirements and the cosmic patterns that govern all successful human endeavor. The polyrhythmic structures that characterize much coastal music provide new possibilities for coordinating multiple simultaneous activities within our construction projects. The polyrhythmic song that develops from this influence allows different teams to work at their own optimal pace while maintaining the overall coordination that complex building projects require, creating musical environments where individual efficiency serves collective achievement. The call and response patterns that dominate much of the music from the interior kingdoms offer new models for communication between different levels of our construction hierarchy. The communication song that adapts these patterns helps master builders coordinate with their assistants more effectively, ensuring that complex instructions are transmitted accurately despite the noise and confusion that characterize active building sites. The praise songs that celebrate the achievements of distant rulers provide templates for the ceremonial music that honors our own royal construction projects. The praise song that emerges from this synthesis helps us create musical frameworks for the dedication ceremonies that mark the completion of major building phases, ensuring that these important events receive the artistic treatment their significance deserves. The work songs that coordinate agricultural activities in different regions offer new approaches to the seasonal organization of our construction calendar. The seasonal song that incorporates these influences helps us plan building activities to take advantage of favorable weather while avoiding the disruptions that come with the rainy season, ensuring that our projects proceed efficiently despite the challenges of highland climate. The healing songs that accompany medical practices in various cultures provide new understanding of how music can be used to maintain the health and morale of construction workers. The healing song that develops from this knowledge helps us create work environments that support both physical and spiritual well-being, reducing injuries and maintaining the positive attitudes that successful building projects require. The storytelling songs that preserve historical traditions in oral cultures offer new models for encoding the technical knowledge that must be passed from one generation of builders to the next. The teaching song that emerges from this influence helps us create more effective methods for training apprentices, ensuring that crucial skills and knowledge will survive even if individual masters are lost to war or disease. The religious songs that express the spiritual beliefs of different peoples provide new insights into the sacred dimensions of construction work. The spiritual song that synthesizes these influences helps us understand how building activities can serve not just practical purposes but spiritual ones as well, creating structures that function as focal points for the concentration and direction of divine power. The innovation that results from this musical cross-fertilization extends beyond mere artistic enrichment to encompass practical improvements in our construction techniques. The innovation song that guides this process helps us identify and test new approaches to traditional problems, ensuring that our building methods continue to evolve while maintaining the fundamental principles that have proven their worth through centuries of successful construction. The preservation of these musical innovations requires careful documentation and systematic teaching to ensure that valuable new knowledge will not be lost when the traders who brought it move on to other markets. The preservation song that governs this process helps us integrate foreign influences into our traditional teaching methods, creating hybrid forms that honor both our ancestral wisdom and the new insights that contact with the wider world provides. Our songs spread like seeds, teaching new communities the art of stone on stone, and I feel the profound satisfaction of witnessing our building traditions take root in the valley settlements that cluster around the great city like children gathering around their mother. The knowledge that flows from our highland stronghold carries with it not just technical instruction, but the spiritual wisdom that transforms mere construction into sacred work, creating a network of communities united by shared understanding of how stone and song can combine to create architecture worthy of the ancestors' blessing. The first settlement to request our guidance lies in the valley where the Mutirikwi River bends toward the eastern hills, a growing community of farmers and craftsmen who have prospered under the protection of our walls and now seek to create their own stone enclosures. Brother Chipo leads the teaching expedition that will carry our songs to these eager students, his voice already adapting our highland chants to the different acoustic conditions of the river valley, where sound travels differently through the humid air that rises from the water. The teaching song that guides our instruction of new communities must balance the preservation of essential knowledge with adaptation to local conditions and materials. The granite formations in the valley differ from those on our highland plateau, requiring modifications to our quarrying techniques and stone selection criteria. The songs we teach must encode these variations while maintaining the fundamental principles that ensure structural integrity and spiritual efficacy. The apprentices who travel with our teaching expeditions carry with them not just vocal knowledge, but the tools and techniques needed to establish new centers of stone construction. The tool song that accompanies the distribution of iron chisels and wooden mallets helps new communities understand the sacred relationship between craftsman and implement, teaching them to treat their tools as partners in the work of creation, rather than mere objects to be used and discarded. The foundation ceremonies that mark the beginning of construction in each new settlement require adaptation of our highland rituals to local spiritual traditions and ancestral practices. The adaptation song helps us understand how to modify our sacred procedures without compromising their essential function, creating hybrid ceremonies that honor both our building traditions and the local customs that give meaning to community life in different environments. The stone selection techniques we teach must account for the geological variations that characterize different parts of our kingdom, helping new communities identify and utilize the building materials that nature has provided in their particular locations. The selection song for valley construction includes verses that describe the different types of granite found in lowland formations, teaching builders to recognize quality stone even when it differs in appearance from the highland varieties with which we are most familiar. The construction sequences we establish in new settlements must accommodate the smaller scale and different purposes that characterize valley architecture, adapting our techniques for royal construction to the more modest requirements of farming communities and trading posts. The scale song helps us understand how to maintain structural principles while reducing the size and complexity of building projects to match available resources and labor. The work coordination methods we teach must function effectively with smaller teams of less experienced builders, requiring simplification of our most complex chants while preserving the essential rhythms that ensure safe and efficient construction. The simplification song guides this process of adaptation, helping us identify the core elements that must be preserved and the elaborations that can be modified or eliminated without compromising the effectiveness of our building methods. The quality control procedures we establish in new settlements must be rigorous enough to ensure structural integrity while remaining simple enough for inexperienced builders to implement effectively. The quality song teaches local communities how to recognize and correct common problems before they become serious threats to the stability of their walls, providing systematic methods for maintaining construction standards even without constant supervision from master builders. The seasonal planning techniques we share help new communities organize their construction activities to take advantage of favorable weather while avoiding the disruptions that come with the rainy season. The planning song for valley construction accounts for the different climate patterns that characterize lowland environments, teaching builders to schedule their work according to local conditions rather than the highland patterns with which we are most familiar. The maintenance procedures we establish ensure that valley settlements will be able to preserve and repair their stone walls without constant assistance from highland masters. The maintenance song for valley construction teaches local communities how to identify and address structural problems before they become serious threats, providing the knowledge needed to keep their walls standing through decades of use and weathering. The innovation opportunities that arise from teaching in different environments help us refine and improve our own techniques, as local conditions and materials challenge us to develop new solutions to familiar problems. The innovation song that emerges from this teaching process helps us integrate lessons learned in the valleys back into our highland practices, creating a cycle of mutual enrichment that benefits all communities within our network. The spiritual dimensions of valley construction require careful attention to local ancestral traditions and sacred sites, ensuring that new stone walls will be blessed by the spirits who have long protected these communities. The spiritual song for valley work helps us understand how to adapt our highland ceremonies to honor local ancestors while maintaining the essential spiritual functions that give meaning to our construction work. The economic benefits that flow from the expansion of stone construction throughout our kingdom create new opportunities for trade and specialization, as communities develop their own expertise in particular aspects of building while maintaining connections to the broader network of knowledge and skill. The economic song helps us understand how to organize this expanding system of construction knowledge to benefit all participants while maintaining the quality standards that preserve our reputation. The cultural preservation that results from teaching our building songs to new communities ensures that this knowledge will survive even if individual centers are lost to war or natural disaster. The preservation song guides the establishment of multiple repositories of construction wisdom, creating redundancy that protects our traditions against the uncertainties that threaten all human endeavors. The legacy of our teaching efforts extends far beyond the immediate construction projects that motivate our valley expeditions to encompass the creation of a civilization united by shared understanding of how human skill can transform natural materials into architecture that serves both practical and spiritual purposes. The legacy song reminds us that the communities we teach today will become the teachers of tomorrow, carrying our traditions forward into a future we can only imagine. The network of stone-building communities that grows from our teaching efforts creates a web of mutual support and shared knowledge that strengthens the entire kingdom, providing resources and expertise that can be mobilized for major projects, while ensuring that local communities have access to the construction skills they need for their own development. The network song celebrates this expanding community of builders while providing the organizational framework needed to coordinate activities across multiple settlements and diverse environments. When walls stand finished, we sing the stones to sleep with gratitude and praise, and I feel the profound transformation that occurs when construction gives way to consecration, when the practical work of building yields to the sacred task of blessing what we have created. The completion song that marks the end of each major building phase is among the most beautiful in our repertoire, its flowing melodies expressing the deep satisfaction that comes from witnessing raw granite transformed into architecture that will shelter and inspire generations yet unborn. The ceremony begins at dawn, when the first light touches the newly completed walls and reveals the full scope of what we have accomplished through months or years of patient labor. Brother Nahanda leads the procession of master builders as they walk the perimeter of the finished structure, their voices raised in harmonies that seem to make the very stones vibrate with joy. Each section of wall receives individual attention, specific verses that acknowledge its particular contribution to the overall achievement, while expressing gratitude for the sacrifice the granite has made in becoming part of our construction. The blessing song that follows the initial procession calls upon the ancestral spirits to inhabit the spaces we have created, inviting them to take up residence in walls that have been prepared through proper ritual and constructed according to the ancient principles that ensure spiritual as well as structural integrity. This invitation is not mere formality, but essential preparation for the wall's future function, as structures that lack ancestral blessing will never achieve their full potential as focal points for the concentration and direction of sacred power. The gratitude song that honors the workers who have contributed their skill and strength to the construction project recognizes that human achievement is always collaborative, that no individual can claim sole credit for the transformation of stone into architecture. Each craftsman receives acknowledgement for his particular contribution: the quarrymen who selected and extracted the granite, the carriers who transported it to the building site, the masons who shaped and fitted each block, the apprentices who learned while they labored. The stone song that addresses the granite itself acknowledges the sacrifice that natural materials make when they are transformed from their original state into elements of human construction. This chant expresses our understanding that stone possesses its own form of consciousness, its own preferences and inclinations that must be respected if construction is to proceed harmoniously. The song thanks each block for its willingness to serve human purposes, while promising that its new form will honor rather than diminish its essential nature. The protection song that follows establishes the spiritual defenses that will guard the completed structure against the forces of decay and destruction that threaten all human works. This chant calls upon the protective spirits that watch over stone construction, asking them to shield our walls from earthquake and storm, from the malevolent influences that seek to undermine human achievement, from the simple passage of time that eventually claims all mortal creations. The dedication song that formally consecrates the completed structure to its intended purpose transforms functional architecture into sacred space, creating the spiritual conditions necessary for the wall's proper operation. Whether the structure is designed for royal residence, religious ceremony, or community gathering, this chant establishes the energetic patterns that will allow it to serve its designated function effectively while maintaining the spiritual integrity that gives meaning to all human construction. The memory song that records the history of the construction project ensures that future generations will understand not just what was built, but how and why it was created. This chant preserves the names of the master builders who guided the work, the innovations that were developed during construction, the challenges that were overcome through skill and determination. The song becomes part of the structure's permanent record, a musical archive that will help future builders understand and maintain what we have created. The teaching song that extracts lessons from the completed project helps us understand what we have learned through the process of construction, what techniques proved most effective, what approaches should be modified or abandoned in future work. This reflective chant transforms practical experience into systematic knowledge, ensuring that each building project contributes to the ongoing refinement of our construction methods and the advancement of our architectural understanding. The celebration song that marks the successful completion of major construction phases expresses the joy that comes from witnessing human vision made manifest in stone, from seeing the transformation of raw materials into architecture that serves both practical and spiritual purposes. This festive chant creates the emotional climax of the completion ceremony, allowing all participants to share in the satisfaction of achievement while acknowledging the divine assistance that made success possible. The transition song that marks the shift from construction to occupation prepares the completed structure for its new role as a functioning element of community life. This chant helps both builders and future occupants understand that the relationship between human beings and architecture is ongoing, that the completion of construction marks not an ending but a beginning, the start of a new phase in the structure's existence as a living part of the community it serves. The maintenance song that establishes the ongoing care that completed structures require ensures that our architectural achievements will survive the challenges of time and weather. This chant teaches the procedures needed to preserve stone walls, the signs that indicate when repairs are needed, the techniques for addressing problems before they become serious threats to structural integrity. The song transforms maintenance from mere drudgery into a form of devotion, a way of honoring the achievement that construction represents. The legacy song that contemplates the future of completed structures acknowledges that our building work serves purposes that extend far beyond our own lifetimes, creating architecture that will shelter and inspire people we will never meet in times we cannot imagine. This chant helps us understand that construction is always an act of faith, a commitment to the future based on the belief that human civilization will continue, and that the structures we create will contribute to its flourishing. The silent song that concludes the completion ceremony gradually reduces the musical activity until only the natural sounds of wind and water, birdsong and rustling leaves remain to bless the newly consecrated structure. This final chant recognizes that the most profound blessing comes not from human voices, but from the harmony between our constructed works and the natural world that surrounds and sustains them. The integration of human achievement into the larger patterns of creation that give meaning to all existence. The rest that follows the completion ceremony allows both builders and stones to recover from the intense activity of construction, creating the peaceful conditions necessary for the structure to settle into its permanent form and function. This period of quiet consolidation is as important as the active phases of building, providing the time needed for all elements of the construction to achieve the stable relationships that will ensure long-term success. Master builders pass their songs to chosen ones who will guard the ancient ways, and I feel the profound weight of responsibility settling over the sacred ceremony, where knowledge accumulated through generations of patient labor is transmitted to those who will carry our traditions forward into an uncertain future. The selection song that identifies worthy recipients of our most precious wisdom requires not just technical mastery, but spiritual maturity. The understanding that these chants carry within their melodies the very soul of our craft, and the power to shape stone into monuments that will outlast empires. The choosing of successors begins years before the actual transmission ceremony, as master builders observe their apprentices and journeymen for signs of the special qualities that mark those destined to become keepers of the ancient ways. Brother Mutindi, now in his 70th season, has spent decades evaluating the young builders who work under his guidance, watching for the combination of skill, wisdom, and spiritual sensitivity that qualifies one to receive the deepest secrets of our craft. The evaluation song that guides this selection process helps masters recognize the subtle signs that distinguish true calling from mere ambition, the difference between those who seek knowledge for personal advancement and those who understand that wisdom is a sacred trust to be preserved and protected for the benefit of all. The melody of this chant seems to reveal the inner nature of those being evaluated, their voices betraying qualities of character that might otherwise remain hidden. The preparation of chosen successors requires years of intensive training that goes far beyond the technical instruction given to ordinary apprentices. The preparation song that governs this advanced education includes verses that teach not just how to perform our building techniques, but why they work. What spiritual principles underlie their effectiveness, how they connect to the larger patterns of cosmic harmony that govern all successful human endeavor. The sacred songs that contain our most precious knowledge are taught only to those who have proven their worthiness through years of faithful service and demonstrated wisdom. The secret song that begins this transmission acknowledges the awesome responsibility being undertaken, the understanding that these melodies carry within them the power to create or destroy, to build monuments that will inspire generations, or to unleash forces that could bring disaster upon entire communities. The memory techniques that ensure accurate transmission of complex musical knowledge require training that begins in childhood and continues throughout a builder's career. The memory song teaches chosen successors how to encode vast amounts of technical information within musical structures, how to use rhythm and melody to preserve precise measurements, exact proportions, and detailed procedures that must be remembered perfectly if they are to be effective. The spiritual preparation that accompanies the transmission of sacred knowledge includes elaborate purification rituals and extended periods of meditation, designed to prepare the recipient's consciousness for contact with the deepest mysteries of our craft. The purification song that guides these preparations helps chosen successors achieve the state of spiritual clarity necessary for receiving and retaining knowledge that operates on multiple levels of meaning simultaneously. The testing procedures that verify a successor's readiness to receive the most sacred songs are rigorous and unforgiving, designed to ensure that only those with perfect understanding and unshakable commitment will be entrusted with our most precious traditions. The testing song creates the framework for examinations that evaluate not just technical knowledge, but spiritual maturity, moral character, and the deep understanding that transforms mere information into living wisdom. The oath-taking ceremony that formally inducts new keepers of the ancient ways binds them to sacred obligations that will govern the rest of their lives, commitments that transcend personal interest and individual ambition. The oath song that accompanies this ritual creates the spiritual conditions necessary for making vows that will be enforced not by human authority, but by the ancestral spirits who watch over our traditions and punish those who betray their trust. The gradual revelation of the most sacred songs follows a carefully planned sequence that allows new keepers to absorb and integrate each level of knowledge before proceeding to the next. The revelation song that governs this process ensures that the transmission will proceed at the optimal pace, neither so fast that crucial details are missed, nor so slow that the recipient loses the momentum necessary for complete understanding. The practical application of newly transmitted knowledge requires supervised practice under the guidance of the master who has shared his wisdom, ensuring that theoretical understanding translates into effective performance. The application song helps new keepers understand how to use their knowledge responsibly, how to adapt ancient techniques to contemporary challenges, while preserving the essential principles that give our traditions their power. The documentation procedures that create backup records of transmitted knowledge provide insurance against the loss of crucial information through accident or disaster. The documentation song teaches new keepers how to create written records that supplement their musical knowledge without compromising the security that oral transmission provides, ensuring that our traditions will survive even if individual keepers are lost. The network of relationships that connects keepers of the ancient ways across different communities and regions creates a web of mutual support and shared responsibility for preserving our traditions. The network song helps new keepers understand their place in this larger community, their obligations to share knowledge when appropriate, while maintaining the discretion necessary to protect sacred information from those who might misuse it. The innovation guidelines that govern how ancient knowledge can be adapted to meet new challenges ensure that our traditions will remain vital and relevant while preserving their essential character. The innovation song teaches new keepers how to distinguish between changes that enhance our traditions and those that would corrupt or weaken them, providing the wisdom needed to guide the evolution of our craft through changing circumstances. The succession planning that ensures continuity of knowledge transmission requires each keeper to identify and train their own replacements, creating an unbroken chain of wisdom that stretches from the distant past into the far future. The succession song helps keepers understand their responsibility to the next generation, their obligation to ensure that the knowledge they have received will be passed forward intact to those who will carry it into times they cannot imagine. The legacy consciousness that motivates keepers of the ancient ways transforms individual achievement into service to something greater than personal ambition, creating the spiritual foundation necessary for the selfless dedication that knowledge preservation requires. The legacy song reminds keepers that they are temporary custodians of eternal wisdom, guardians of traditions that belong not to them but to all humanity, trustees of knowledge that must be preserved for the benefit of generations yet unborn. The final blessing that concludes the transmission ceremony formally recognizes the new keeper's readiness to assume full responsibility for preserving and protecting the ancient ways. The blessing song that accompanies this recognition calls upon the ancestral spirits to guide and protect the new keeper, asking for their assistance in the sacred work of ensuring that our building traditions will survive and flourish through whatever challenges the future may bring. As night claims the granite city, our voices fade, but the stones remember every note, and I feel the profound peace that comes from completing another day in service to the eternal work of building Zimbabwe, knowing that the walls we have raised will carry our songs forward through centuries we will never see. The darkness that settles over our highland stronghold is not empty, but pregnant with the accumulated music of generations, each stone holding within its crystalline structure the memory of every chant that guided its placement, every melody that blessed its transformation from raw granite into architecture worthy of the ancestors' approval. The evening ritual that marks the end of each day's construction begins with the closing song, a gentle melody that gradually reduces the intensity of our work activities until only the natural sounds of wind and water, night birds and rustling leaves remain to bless our completed labors. This transition from human music to natural harmony acknowledges that our building work is part of a larger symphony, a cosmic composition in which human achievement serves as one voice among many in the eternal chorus of creation. The tools that have served us faithfully throughout the day are cleaned and blessed before being stored in their appointed places, each implement receiving individual attention and gratitude for its contribution to the day's achievements. The tool song that accompanies this evening care transforms mundane maintenance into a form of devotion, recognizing that our iron chisels and wooden mallets are partners in the sacred work of transformation, deserving of the respect and care that all participants in holy labor merit. The apprentices who have labored alongside us gather for the evening instruction that helps them understand not just what they have accomplished, but why their work matters, how their individual efforts contribute to the larger project of creating architecture that will serve both practical and spiritual purposes. The teaching song that guides this reflection helps young builders see beyond the immediate tasks of lifting and fitting stones to comprehend the cosmic significance of construction work that aligns human will with divine purpose. The master builders who have guided the day's work meet in council to evaluate progress and plan tomorrow's activities, their discussions guided by the planning song that helps them balance technical requirements with spiritual considerations, practical needs with ceremonial obligations. These evening consultations ensure that our construction projects will proceed according to both engineering principles and the sacred patterns that give meaning to all human endeavor. The walls that have grown under our hands throughout the day settle into their new configurations, the granite blocks adjusting to their positions as the stone gradually releases the stresses created by the day's construction activities. The settling song that acknowledges this process recognizes that building is not just a human activity, but a collaboration between craftsmen and materials, a partnership that requires time and patience for its full potential to be realized. The spirits of the ancestors who have guided our work throughout the day receive our evening gratitude through the gratitude song that acknowledges their invisible assistance and asks for their continued blessing on our construction efforts. This chant recognizes that human skill alone is insufficient for the creation of architecture that will endure through centuries, that success requires the cooperation of forces beyond mortal understanding and control. The protective rituals that guard our construction sites through the night hours establish spiritual barriers against the malevolent influences that seek to undermine human achievement. The protection song that creates these defenses calls upon the guardian spirits who watch over stone construction, asking them to shield our work from earthquake and storm, from the evil forces that would corrupt our materials or weaken our structures. The meditation that follows the evening ceremonies allows builders to process the experiences of the day, integrating new knowledge and skills into their growing understanding of the craft that gives meaning to their lives. The meditation song that guides this reflection creates the mental conditions necessary for deep learning, helping workers understand not just what they have done, but what they have become through the process of participating in sacred construction. The dreams that visit builders during their night rest often carry visions of completed structures, glimpses of the architectural achievements that will emerge from current construction projects. The dream song that interprets these nocturnal revelations helps builders understand the messages that flow from the unconscious mind, the insights that emerge when the rational intellect relaxes its control and allows deeper wisdom to surface. The night sounds that fill the darkness around our construction sites create a natural symphony that complements and enhances the human music that has guided the day's work. The night song that acknowledges this acoustic environment recognizes that our building activities take place within a larger musical context, that the sounds we make must harmonize with the natural rhythms that govern all life in our highland kingdom. The stars that shine above our granite city provide the celestial reference points that guide the astronomical alignments built into our most important structures. The star song that honors these cosmic guides acknowledges that our earthly construction work participates in patterns that extend far beyond the immediate concerns of human architecture, connecting our walls to the eternal movements that govern the universe itself. The silence that gradually claims our construction sites as the night deepens creates the peaceful conditions necessary for the spiritual forces that bless our work to concentrate and strengthen. The silent song that welcomes this quiet recognizes that the most profound blessings often come not through sound, but through the absence of sound, the deep peace that allows sacred energies to flow unimpeded through the spaces we have created. The memory of the day's songs that lingers in the minds of sleeping builders ensures that the musical knowledge that guides our construction work will be preserved and strengthened through repetition and reflection. The memory song that governs this unconscious rehearsal helps workers retain the complex melodies and rhythms that coordinate their labor, while deepening their understanding of the spiritual principles that give these chants their power. The promise of tomorrow's work that awaits with the dawn provides the motivation that sustains builders through the challenges and setbacks that inevitably accompany ambitious construction projects. The promise song that looks toward future achievements reminds workers that each day's labor contributes to accomplishments that will outlast their individual lives, creating monuments that will inspire and shelter generations yet unborn. The eternal nature of the work we perform transcends the brief span of mortal existence, connecting our daily labor to the cosmic processes that shape worlds and guide the destiny of civilizations. The eternal song that concludes our evening reflections reminds us that we are participants in something far greater than individual achievement, servants of forces that will continue their work long after our voices have joined the silence that claims all human music. The stones remember every note we have sung, every rhythm that has guided their placement, every melody that has blessed their transformation from raw material into architecture. In their crystalline memory, our songs will live forever, continuing to resonate through the granite walls of Zimbabwe until the stars forget their courses and the earth itself returns to the silence from which all music emerges. The granite hills breathe now with the rhythm of completed devotion, each exhale releasing the concentrated energy of sacred construction, each inhale drawing in the peaceful essence of work that will endure beyond the span of mortal memory. The walls rest in eternal silence, their stone courses holding within crystalline hearts the accumulated songs of generations who have shaped them, while the tools of building lie blessed and consecrated like sleeping guardians who have fulfilled their divine purpose. In this deepening quiet, I find myself becoming one with the settling stone, with the gentle darkness that embraces our highland city like the wings of ancestral spirits protecting the most sacred mysteries. My consciousness drifts like the evening mist that rises from the valley below, carrying with it the accumulated peace of traditions honored, of ancient melodies preserved, of the endless dance between human skill and natural material that gives meaning to the builder's calling. The merchants travel now through landscapes of starlight and shadow, their hearts carrying the wonder of walls that seem to grow from the earth itself, their memories preserving rhythms that bridge distant lands and ancient wisdom. But here, in this sanctuary of creation, time moves differently, more slowly, more gently, like granite settling into its eternal rest, like songs echoing through stone corridors that connect the temporal to the timeless. My breathing synchronizes with the mountain's natural rhythm, and I feel myself dissolving into the larger harmony that connects all things. The walls standing guard over royal dreams, the granite that yielded its secrets to patient hands, the iron chisels that sang against stone, the voices that transformed labor into worship. We are all part of a single story, written in stone and song, in the eternal conversation between what is mortal and what aspires to touch the realm of the ancestors. The shadows lengthen and soften, creating pools of gentle darkness where thoughts can rest without the sharp edges of analysis or concern. In these quiet spaces, the years of building take on the quality of a half-remembered dream, beautiful, meaningful, but somehow existing in a realm beyond the ordinary boundaries of time and space. The raising of walls becomes a metaphor for all human aspiration, the patient fitting of stone on stone, a meditation on the possibility of creating something that will outlast the brief span of individual existence.
As consciousness drifts toward the borderland of sleep, the construction site itself seems to fade, becoming less a physical space than a state of mind, a place where the sacred and mundane meet, where human hands learn to serve purposes greater than individual ambition, where monuments become prayers carved in granite and lifted toward heaven through the alchemy of faith and skill. In this twilight realm between waking and sleeping, the boundaries between craftsman and creation dissolve completely. I am the wall rising from granite foundations like prayers made manifest, the songs that guide each stone to its perfect place, the ancient rhythms that coordinate the work of many hands. I am the highland wind carrying whispers of ancestral wisdom, the granite that remembers the fire of creation, the eternal cycle of building that transforms earth into glimpses of the divine order. The last conscious thought drifts away like the final note of a completion ceremony, leaving only the profound peace that comes from work done in service of eternity, from beauty created and released into a world that hungers for such moments of transcendence. The walls settle into their eternal vigil, ready to shelter the dreams of countless generations, ready to serve as bridges between the world of the living and the realm where the ancestors continue their eternal reign. Sleep comes now like the gentle settling of highland stone, carrying with it dreams of curved walls and starlit ceremonies, of builders and kings, of the endless dance between creation and purpose that gives meaning to both. In these dreams, all stones find their perfect places, all walls stand complete beneath skies that never change, and the work of transformation continues forever in workshops that exist beyond the reach of time or decay. The infinite sand of history receives our footprints gently, preserving them not as marks of passage, but as evidence of presence, proof that in this moment, in this place, human hands touched stone with reverence and found within it something approaching the divine. Rest now in this knowledge, traveler, and let the echoes of our shared journey carry you toward whatever dreams await in the peaceful country beyond consciousness, where perfect walls exist in forms too beautiful for waking eyes to behold, where the songs that know no straight lines continue to guide the hands of builders in realms where morning never ends and the music of creation never ceases. The infinite sand of history receives our footprints gently, preserving them not as marks of passage, but as evidence of presence, proof that in this moment, in this place, human hands touched stone with reverence and found within it something approaching the divine. Rest now in this knowledge, traveler, and let the echoes of our shared journey carry you toward whatever dreams await in the peaceful country beyond consciousness, where perfect walls exist in forms too beautiful for waking eyes to behold, where the songs that know no straight lines continue to guide the hands of builders in realms where morning never ends and the music of creation never ceases.